When you look across the league right now, you can feel the shift in energy that only happens when high-stakes basketball starts bleeding into the regular season. These cup games have turned into something entirely different from the standard November grind. Teams that usually sleepwalk through early season matchups are suddenly fighting like it's late April, and defenses that normally give up 115 without blinking are contesting every possession like their season depends on it. We've seen point differential urgency, playoff-level intensity, and coaches adjusting rotations on the fly as everyone tries to squeeze into the next phase. And as we head into Friday's slate, which wraps up the group stage for the Cup, the final pieces of the puzzle come into focus. Some teams have everything to gain. Some have nothing to play for. And others sit in that gray area where motivations shift depending on how the night unfolds. So the goal here is simple. Break down who cares, who doesn't, who's playing for seeding, who's playing for pride, and who might just be trying to get through the night without burning out their starters. I've spent a few hours digging through the numbers, injury news, historical matchups, volume trends, and recent Cup-specific performances to get a clear read on all of it. Whether you're hunting edges for spreads, props, or totals, this slate gives you more angles than most November cards ever do. And today, on Beyond the Box Score, we're going to walk through every game you need to know about and highlight the players and situations that could decide this entire Cup slate. Let's begin with the Sixers taking on the Nets, where the Sixers enter as 7.5-point favorites. These teams met earlier in the month, on November 2nd, and the Sixers walked away with a decisive 129-105 victory. But here's the key context you absolutely need to keep in mind. Both teams have already been eliminated from Cup contention. That means neither side has incentive to chase point differential, and both coaching staffs are more concerned with keeping their main pieces healthy than squeezing blood out of a stone in late November. And when motivation drops, rotations get odd, bench guys see expanded roles, and props become far more dependent on who actually wants to shoot. And speaking of availability, the Sixers list VJ Edgecombe as out, Joel Embiid as out, Kelly Oubre as out, Paul George as questionable, and Adam Bona as probable. Meanwhile, the Nets will be without Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr., and this is the type of situation where someone unexpected needs to take on a heavy scoring load. For Brooklyn, that someone has quietly been Noah Clowney. Even when Michael Porter Jr. was still available, Clowney took on a larger offensive role, but now with Porter out, the volume jumps even higher. He has played 37 or more minutes in 3 straight games and is taking 15 or more shots per game in that stretch. Combine that with the fact that the Sixers have given up the 11th most points across the league over the past month, and you've got a clear opportunity. Clowney's shot volume is real, the minutes are stable, and the matchup is workable. On the flip side, the Sixers have been leaning on Jared McCain with both Edgecombe and Oubre sidelined. McCain missed time earlier, but since returning, his minutes have increased and he's settled into a significant offensive role. In the 2 games without Edgecombe and Oubre, he scored exactly 15 points in each outing, hitting his points line both times. The Nets have improved slightly defensively over the last few weeks, but they still rank 9th in points allowed over the past month. And while McCain can definitely hit his threes, he has covered his 3-point prop in both of those games. I still prefer his points because it's simply a cleaner path. The shot attempts are consistent, the usage is up, and the matchup is manageable enough to trust his production. For the side, these kinds of games are always tricky because the stars are mostly out and motivation shifts play to play. Tyrese Maxey will be there for Philly, maybe Paul George, but the type of guys who thrive in these games are the players looking for opportunity, looking for roles, looking to earn trust from coaching staffs. And in that environment, home teams with more available young legs tend to outperform expectations. So even though the Sixers are favored, I lean toward the Nets with the points at home. The next matchup is the Bucks versus the Knicks, where New York sits as a 7.5-point favorite. The biggest question mark coming into this one is whether Giannis will play, as he's listed as questionable. The Knicks, meanwhile, won't have OG Anunoby available. From a group perspective, the Knicks have the tiebreaker over the Heat, so a win here means they win the group outright. The Bucks, on the other hand, could finish second if they win, but they would still need a huge point differential against New York to sneak into the 4 seed. So the Knicks have clear motivation: win and advance. The Bucks have motivation too, but theirs requires both a win and a blowout margin, which is hard to count on if Giannis isn't fully ready. One player set up for massive volume in this game is Jalen Brunson. This is a premium matchup for him because the Bucks give up the 5th most points to opposing point guards. In their last Cup game against the Hornets, Brunson took 28 shots, and there's every reason to believe he can hit a similar volume level here. He also dropped 36 points on Milwaukee earlier this season, which only reinforces how ideal this matchup is for him. And if you're building parlays or looking for consistent props, Karl Anthony Towns is worth mentioning. He has recorded a double-double in 88% of his games this season. The Bucks already allow a high number of rebounds, and Towns' consistency makes his double-double a strong parlay piece. Whether he hits his full rebounds line is harder to predict given the physical nature of this matchup, but the stability of his double-double trend speaks for itself. For the Bucks, it's tough without knowing whether Giannis is in or out, but one player whose rebounds line consistently looks low is Miles Turner. He had 8 boards against the Knicks earlier this year and has been hitting his rebounds in 3 out of every 4 games, about 75% on the season. In matchups with heightened defensive intensity, rebounding opportunities increase, and this game qualifies. New York gives up the 13th most rebounds to centers, and Turner has hit 77% of his rebounds props this season even when Giannis has played. So Turner remains a very reasonable look in a game where possessions should be tight and rebounding battles matter. As far as picking the spread, I lean toward the Knicks. They're at home, they have more to play for, and they match up well with Milwaukee. If Giannis sits or is limited, the Knicks become even stronger favorites, but even with him available, New York has the advantage here and should try to win decisively. Now let's get into the Bulls versus Hornets, where Chicago comes in as a 2.5 point favorite. Both teams have already been eliminated from Cup contention, meaning there's no incentive to chase point differential or overextend starters. This one should play out like a typical regular season meeting with Cup-themed colors on the floor. The Bulls' injury situation is long and messy. Isaac Okoro is doubtful. Kevin Huerter, Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic, and Kobe White are all questionable. Kobe White's designation is rest-related because the Bulls have a back-to-back set. There's a strong possibility they sit him in the front end and play him on the second, meaning he may not be available here. The Hornets have no new significant injuries, meaning they will have most of their rotation intact. Given the personnel uncertainty, this projects as a high-scoring matchup with very little defensive resistance. The Bulls give up the 4th most points in the league over the past month, and the Hornets give up the 9th most. If Kobe White plays, his assist line immediately becomes interesting. He is averaging 7 assists per game on 11 potential assists. The Hornets allow the 4th most assists in the league, making this a favorable setup. But the likelihood of him sitting pushes that value into a questionable space. If he does sit, Josh Giddey becomes the primary beneficiary in terms of facilitating duties. One player who stands out regardless of Kobe White's status is Ayo Dosunmu. He's coming off a 28-point performance and is expected to play around 30 minutes. When he plays 28 or more minutes this season, he is averaging 20 points per game. The matchup is ideal, the usage is there, and with the Bulls potentially resting multiple key players, Dosunmu's scoring role becomes even more secure. If you're looking at alternate lines, his 20-plus points prop at plus 265 is a strong value in this matchup. On the Hornets' side, they have multiple scorers who can step up, but the best matchup belongs to Ryan Kalkbrenner at center. Chicago gives up the most points to opposing centers, and if Vucevic sits, the interior becomes even softer. When Kalkbrenner plays 15 or more minutes, he has covered his points line in 11 of 15 games this season. The one game excluded is a game where he left early due to injury, and he averages about 25 minutes per game normally. This is a clean matchup and a favorable usage environment for him. As for the lean, with Chicago possibly sitting a lot of players and already showing difficulty against even the weakest teams recently, they lost to the Pelicans and barely beat the Wizards, I lean toward the Hornets at home. They're healthier, more stable, and in a better position to take advantage. Next up is the Cavaliers versus the Hawks. Cleveland gets some positive news with Darius Garland not appearing on the injury report and Jared Allen listed as probable. Craig Porter Jr. and Dean Wade are questionable, and Sam Merrill remains out. Atlanta has no new injuries to report. The Hawks are eliminated from cup contention, but the Cavaliers still have something to play for. They can't win their group because the Raptors already secured it, but they currently lead in point differential among second-place teams. That means they need a big win here to protect that position and try to secure the fourth seed. Motivation absolutely matters, and Cleveland's motivation is clear: win and win convincingly. One prop that immediately jumps out here is Jared Allen's first quarter points. This correlates directly with Darius Garland's return. Over the years, Garland and Allen have consistently run that early pick-and-roll action to perfection. And in the 3 games they've played together this season, Allen hit his first quarter points line every time. He even hit his full game points line in all 3, but the majority of that scoring came early. Without Garland, Allen's scoring becomes unreliable. With Garland, it's a different story entirely. The chemistry is automatic, the timing is perfect, and the Cavaliers intentionally feed that tandem early to settle into rhythm. It's one of the cleanest angles on the board. Another Cavaliers player worth spotlighting is DeAndre Hunter, who returns to Atlanta after being traded last season. Familiar environments can bring out strong performances, and Hunter has been consistently hitting his points line this year. He's scored 15 or more in 11 of 15 games and dropped 19 against Atlanta earlier this season. With Donovan Mitchell likely to take a high-volume scoring approach again, Hunter becomes that secondary scorer who benefits from open looks and pace. The history, the matchup, and the consistency all point in his favor. And with Cleveland looking to run up the score, he should get plenty of opportunities. For the side, the Cavaliers unquestionably have blowout potential here, and that's the direction I lean. Finally, we have the Magic versus the Pistons, where Detroit is a 3.5-point favorite. Paolo Banchero remains out for Orlando, and Jaden Ivey is questionable for Detroit. The winner of this matchup takes the group, while the loser finishes second and needs help from the Cavaliers and Knicks losing worse in their games. Both teams are strong defensively, and this should be a slower game with heavy defensive emphasis. These are 2 of the toughest defenses in basketball, and the style of play will reflect that. One angle I keep coming back to is Orlando's ongoing struggle guarding point guards. I've mentioned this multiple times this season, and it remains absolutely relevant. Cade Cunningham is coming off a showcase-level performance in their last cup game, where he dropped 42 points on 26 shots against a Celtics defense that isn't exactly easy to score on. When Cade is locked in, the volume rises, and this matchup sets up beautifully for another high-usage, high-efficiency outing. He already scored 30 against Orlando earlier this season, and this is another opportunity for him to hit the 30-plus range again. The Magic simply don't have the right matchup tools to take away his shot creation. On the other side, Detroit allows the 5th fewest points in the NBA, and that puts Jalen Suggs in a difficult position. Suggs has hit his points line only 3 times all year. He scored just 8 points against Detroit in October, and in a slow-paced, heavy-pressure game, the offense is going to funnel through Franz Wagner early and often. Suggs' line is inflated because Banchero is out, but the matchup does not support the number. I lean under on Suggs. And for the side, I lean toward the Pistons. They are healthier, Cade is playing at an elite level, and Orlando is still without their best player. Detroit should have the advantage at home in a meaningful, high-intensity matchup. This entire slate has layers, motivation layers, injury layers, volume layers, and matchup layers, and that's what makes these cup games so much more interesting than a standard early season card. Some teams are fighting for advancement, some teams are fighting for rhythm, and some teams are trying to see what they have in their younger pieces. That creates opportunity, and opportunity creates value for bettors who understand how to read these matchups. Next is Wizards vs Pacers, where the Pacers come in as 6.5-point favorites, and before anything else, it's important to acknowledge the big picture. Both teams have been eliminated, which means motivation is low and defensive engagement is pretty much non-existent. Washington gives up the most points in the NBA, and Indiana gives up the fifth most, creating one of the purest high-scoring environments you can possibly ask for. No cup pressure, no meaningful standings implications, just shot volume and defensive apathy. Keshad George is questionable for the Wizards. Andrew Nebert is newly questionable for Indiana. That matters for props, especially because Washington bleeds points at almost every position, which makes Indiana's high-volume shooters immediately more attractive, and that's where Benedict Mathurin enters the picture. The Wizards give up the most points to his position, and 7 of the last 8 players in that same role have cleared their points line. His recent matchups have been difficult. Detroit and Toronto both forced him into inefficient usage, but this is the exact kind of game where that flips. At home, against a defense that rarely contests at the arc or at the rim, Mathurin walks into one of his softest matchups in weeks. There's also Jarris Walker, who's been a sneaky bright spot recently, but Mathurin's combination of matchup, volume, and historical hit rate carries the cleaner projection. If Keshad George is ruled out, C.J. McCollum becomes one of the most important reaction plays on the board. Without George, McCollum's last 2 games featured 25 points and 46 points, so this is unquestionably one where you wait on the news before locking anything in. The side is trickier. With potential absences and neither team caring much, it's not a confidence pick, but Indiana getting the home floor edge nudges the lean toward the Pacers. It would feel better if Nebert were confirmed in, but the matchup and location push the lean in that direction. Next game is Kings vs Jazz, where Utah is favored by 1.5 at home, and the Kings will again be without Domantas Sabonis. Dennis Schroeder is questionable, while the Jazz have no new injuries. Both teams have already been eliminated, but the matchup style still tells a story. Utah gives up the second most points, Sacramento gives up the third most, so we walk directly into another high-scoring setup. Utah has covered 7 of 9 home games, and if Schroeder plays, his rebounds plus assists profile jumps immediately. With Sabonis out, Schroeder owns a 100% hit rate on his raw line in this exact situation, and this matchup fits the trend perfectly. On the Sacramento side, the most encouraging return recently has been Keegan Murray. He's back to heavy minutes, 38 per game, with 16 field goal attempts per night, and he's cleared his line in 3 straight games. The combination of volume and court time is simply too strong to ignore. Utah's outlier trend comes from Lauri Markkanen. Against bottom 10 defenses, he averages 35 points per game and has hit in every matchup in that category this season. He dropped 33 against Sacramento earlier this year and now gets them again at home, where his scoring consistency improves. The Kings also allow the third most assists, which makes Keontae George compelling. He's hit his assist line in 12 of 17 games, and if you bump the line down by 1, he's only missed twice all season. Excellent parlay piece. The lean goes to Utah. They outscore teams, they play faster at home, and Sacramento without Sabonis structurally struggles with efficiency and rebounding. Now Spurs vs Nuggets, where Denver is favored by 8.5. The Spurs remain without Castle and Wemby. Harrison Barnes is questionable. For Denver, Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun, and Julian Strawther remain out. What raises the stakes here is simple. The winner takes the group, so motivation is finally real. Both teams are strong defensively, but that caveat only applied when Wemby was active. Without him, opposing centers have eaten statistically, which leads directly to Jokic's rebound line. At home, he's gone over in 75% of games, and against a Spurs team that has allowed 7 of the last 8 centers to hit their rebound number, the projection is straightforward. Jamal Murray is another player worth targeting for rebounds plus assists. At home, he has missed only once all season. The volume of minutes he'll play, especially with defensive responsibilities ramped up, supports that trend. For San Antonio, Julian Champagnie has quietly become a double-digit rebound threat. He has double-digit boards in back-to-back games, and he has hit his rebounds plus assists in 3 of the last 4 games with Castle and Wemby out. His double-double sits at plus 600, and while the matchup is tough, the role is strong enough to justify the play. The lean goes to Denver. Playoff-proven roster, at home, and fully motivated to close out the group. Now move to Suns vs Thunder where Thunder favored by 15.5. Phoenix is missing Grayson Allen and Jalen Green. OKC gets Jalen Williams, J-Dub, back, but with the organization stating they'll be patient and cautious reacclimating him, expect a minutes limit. The winner takes the group, but OKC would still likely grab the 4 seed unless they lost by a blowout. Both teams are elite defensively. OKC allows the fewest points, Phoenix allows the 6th fewest. That puts this game in a much slower, more physical scoring environment. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for 30-plus points remains strong. Even with J-Dub returning, the minutes restriction neutralizes the usage threat, and Shai's hit rate for 30 remains elite. In a game with stakes, he will not take a backseat. For Phoenix, Devin Booker has been ice-cold, 33% over his last 5 and only 27% against Sacramento in his most recent outing. This matchup gets harder, not easier. OKC shuts down scoring and assists, both at top-tier rates, making Booker's points plus assists under the cleaner edge. On the spread, OKC should win outright, but 15 points is massive, especially given Phoenix's recent form. Lean. Suns plus 15.5. Next is Grizzlies vs Clippers. And Clippers favored by 6.5. Memphis remains without Ja Morant. Both teams technically play for second place, but to land the 4 seed, the winner needs a 30 to 40 point blowout, which isn't realistically expected. The Clippers are missing Derek Jones and Bojan Bogdanovic. Vince Williams Jr. continues to be one of the most impressive passers in the league right now. He had 17 assists last game, and his rebounds plus assists remain extremely strong. With Ja out, he's hit that line in 5 straight games, and 6 of the last 7 players at his position have cleared Raw versus the Clippers. For Los Angeles, James Harden has an elite matchup. Memphis gives up the 3rd most points to point guards. Harden averages 35 per game over his last 7 and has hit in 6 of those 7. The lean, Memphis. They're competing, playing with heart, and the Clippers have been flat recently. 6.5 feels like too many. Now we shift to Mavericks vs Lakers. Lakers favored by 10.5. Dallas is without Derek Lively, which is massive because they perform dramatically better with him. Anthony Davis is questionable but trending toward returning. For LA, DeAndre Ayton is probable and Marcus Smart is questionable. The Lakers already clinched their group and will likely be the 2 seed, depending on point differential versus OKC. They won't keep starters in unnecessarily if the game gets lopsided. This is also a narrative game, Luka versus the Lakers, which typically leads to a green light, take over the game approach. While Luka's points line is high, the value sits in his double-double, which is priced at minus 135. He's hitting it in 77% of games this year and 100% at home. Rui Hachimura stays undervalued. Even with LeBron back and the minutes slightly reduced, the shot volume is consistent and he has cleared his line in 75% of games. For Dallas, rebound lines have been dropping due to the AD news. But even if Davis plays, he'll almost certainly be on a limitations plan. PJ Washington's over 5.5 rebounds, hitting in 83% of games, remains one of the cleanest plays on the board. Side lean. Lakers minus 10.5, based on matchup and motivation edge, even if they don't need the game. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Here at Beyond the Box Score, the mission is simple: take every slate, every angle, every injury tag, and every matchup and break it down with clarity, precision, and a true competitive edge. If this breakdown brought you value, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment for the algorithm. Even just a single W helps the content reach more people who love the game the same way you do. More picks, more breakdowns, more winning edges. This is Beyond the Box Score, and I'll catch you in the next one.